For Real Agriculture, I'm Kelvin Hepner. We are in Brandon at Ag Days and pleased to be joined now by Devish Patel, Chief Operating Officer with Ground Truth Ag. And Devish, we're in the Innovation Showcase area here, and you're showing off one of your new products. Can you fill us in on what this machine is and what you're trying to accomplish with it?
Absolutely. So we're here showing off our reference automated grain grading system. It's a benchtop version of our automated grain grading platform. We are starting with the benchtop version. Eventually we'll have the unit on combines as well, and potentially on augers throughout the supply chain. But this first unit does all of the visual grading characteristics of Canadian Western Red Spring wheat. So right now it does about 50 grading factors that are defined by the Canadian Grain Commission: frost, mildew, sprouted grains, severe sprouts, all the impurities like sclerotinia, ergot, and all of those things. Because our rationale is that in order to really understand the grade of your grain, you need to any automated system needs to be able to do every characteristic, because any one of those characteristics can downgrade your grade.
Okay. So this is using a camera basically to replace that subjectivity of a human eye?
That's exactly right, yeah. So we use just a standard computer vision camera, and then we've built our own machine vision detection models that identify all these characteristics. And then there's some complex math that then takes that detection and converts it into a prediction. So if you're familiar with the grading process, a lot of these things are a percentage of weight. So if you're looking for start grass green kernels, you actually have to weigh the kernels, and that's a little difficult to do when we're just taking an image of it. So we have to come up with our own way of making sure that that image translates to the percentage that's required to actually do the grade.
Okay. Would you put this in the category of AI?
Yes, it is in the general category of AI. We don't really use that term very often because I don't think a lot of people care if it's what makes it work. It's more that it does work, and that's the most important part for us.
Okay.
I will say though that the just on the technology side, the fact that machine learning and artificial intelligence has advanced to the point that it is today is what makes our product possible. There's been similar products tried like this through the 90s and even more recently than that. But I would say, even about 5 years ago, the base technology that we used to build our product wouldn't have been possible.
Okay. So we of course have heard stories from farmers of taking grain to two different elevators, being graded by two different people, and coming from the same field, the same bin kind of thing, and grading differently. What kind of variability is there in this relative to what we might see from a human standard grading, the type of grading we've done until now?
Yeah, that's a really difficult comparison to do because, we know our computer vision models have very high precision and recall as the measurements. Like we know that if the factor that we're looking for is in that sample, we're more than 90% likely to identify it. And when we identify an impurity, we're more than 90% likely to get it correct. But understanding what the baseline of a human is not as easily characterized. But I will say that, when we run the same sample through our unit, like over 99% of the time, it'll give you the same result.
Okay.
So as long as the sampling was done correctly, there's so many other sort of potential places for error in the process but we're hoping to remove one of them.
Okay. So where do you see this being commercialized or being used in the industry? Is this farmers going to have something like this in their shop, or is this more at the elevator in the grain industry side of things?
Yeah, I would love to see it in every place where people want to understand the grade of their grain, but I suspect that the use case for a farmer might be in a farm that's capable of doing some blending. If they can understand what is in one area of their storage and wants to improve the quality of a particular bin. They could do some upblending. Initially, though, I expect that it'll be found in grain elevators where, during harvest you have to process hundreds of samples a day, and we can do it in 2 minutes as opposed to a human grader that might take 9 or 10 minutes. And so I don't know that we'll necessarily replace graders. We'll just augment their skills, and they won't have to look for all of the factors. They could look for the ones that our unit doesn't do as well, and focus on those instead of the ones that we can sort of tear out in a minute. We see it as a tool, not necessarily a replacement.
Yeah, augmenting, like
Yes.
you said. Yeah.
Augmenting is an excellent word for that.
So, do you face any regulatory hurdles in terms of grain elevators using this if they are going to not have as much of the human element involved?
The regulatory environment for grain grading is very complex and it's an important part of it to ensure that those transactions are consistent and everyone understands what they'll be getting. So I don't see us displacing any of the current processes that have to be in place to meet the regulations, but between a buyer and a seller, if they agree with the results of our unit, they can use that as an additional piece of data to ensure that the transaction is smooth.
Okay. You mentioned before, kind of in passing, and we haven't talked about it, this is the bench version,
Yeah.
but you're also looking at having this technology applied in more real time in the field in a combine?
Yeah, we've tested on the combine for 2 years now. We think that technology is working fairly well there, but being that it's on the combine, we have to make sure it's a little bit more ruggedized than the benchtop version. So we're going to do another year of field trials. But the advantage of the on-combine one is, yes, you can get some real-time data, which is excellent. But in addition to that, you can also have localized information about your quality throughout your field. Things like protein, for example, we did a little study this year during harvest. We'd hand harvested a small field plot, and we found significant variation. Even within 20 yards, the protein concentration would go from 17% to 12%. So there's significant variability in factors like that, and we suspect that all of the visual characteristics that we grade will have that kind of variability as well. So potentially, if you understand that you have more undeveloped kernels in a particular part of your field, maybe that changes the way you apply chemical or
Which bin you put it in.
Exactly, or what bin you put it in. So there's a number of different ways that we think you can improve your grain handling process, or hopefully your agronomy practices to kind of address those things in the future.
All right. Very interesting. We'll stay tuned to see where it goes. Thanks for your time, Divish.
Absolutely. Thank you for stopping by our booth.